Cleveland Park, Massachusetts Avenue Heights. The Public Safety Committee was set up to help ANC3C to focus on public safety issues in our area. No decisions are made at the meeting, but instead it's an opportunity to illuminate and inform the community and provide an opportunity for more dialogue than may exist in the formality of the ANC meeting itself. So my colleague, Commission Chair Pagas, has just hit the record function because it is a public meeting. And with that, we will turn to our agenda. And I'm pleased, first of all, to be joined by our co-chair, Commissioner Prinzo. And our first item of business is the update from the Metropolitan Police Department for PSAs 203, 204 that encompass much of our ANC area. And we're joined by Captain Darren Haskis of the 2nd District, and also by Lieutenant, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your surname, Sekulich, who I understand is relatively new to the PSAs covering our area. And we didn't meet in August because that's usually when the ANC breaks. But we did meet in July, and at that time, crime stats were heading in a positive, that is, lower direction. And I know that the MPD has had some successes recently, but we're also aware of other incidents in the area. So hope to hear recent reports and activity, number one. And I know there will be follow-up questions on some of those. And then later, after we've had the report from MPD, I'm aware that we're joined also by several residents in the community who also want to discuss and bring to MPD and the ANC's attention some recent incidents where congregants were accosted on the way to worship service at Adas Israel. So that will be later in the meeting. Then after the MPD section, we will also focus on 911, the Office of Unified Communications, and Commissioner Prinzo will be discussing that, and then we'll turn to other business. So with that, Captain Haskis, could I turn it over to you? And thanks again for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. It's very nice being here with you all again. In terms of what MPD has to report, I could very happily say that there were no robberies, ADWs, or sex abuses of note or any in the past 30 days in the ANC. So that's very good news. The bad news is we had 4 burglaries, however, in the ANC. They were all overnight burglaries. 3 of the 4 involved commercial establishments. 3 of the 4 were also in Cleveland Park. So that very much upset us. They only happened about 2 weeks ago. Burglaries have increased in the city as of late, also in Montgomery County and in Arlington, our neighbors. Although we are down burglaries in PSAs 203 and 204 quite a bit from last year. We're down 67% actually, but in the last 30 days, we've had double the amount of burglaries for this 30-day time period as we did last year. So burglaries are cause for concern. Thefts are about the same as last year, which I would like to see them go down further. The good news is on thefts is we very much have increased theft arrests over the same period last year. I don't have the latest statistics in front of me, but I could get them to you all if you want an email to me. from me on that. Theft arrests are dramatically up. I'm gonna say approximately 50% up from last year. I was very much involved with one over at 3700 Newark Street, the CVS over there. Seems many times when I'm driving by, a radio assignment goes out for a theft there. I stop by and we make a theft arrest. This particular person was also had a robbery warrant out of Arlington County, so thefts and apparently robberies, but thankfully no robberies that we know of here in the district. Theft from autos are down the past 30 days as opposed to same time last year. Although they've been ticking up more in the last 2 weeks. So that's of concern. We'll definitely do some outreach efforts on people, making sure that they're not leaving valuables in vehicles and making sure we do some of these nighttime patrols in the neighborhoods where some of these thefts are occurring. The motor vehicle thefts are also down from last year. So we had a very good past 30 days for motor vehicle thefts. For the year, we are still down quite a bit on burglaries, about the same for motor vehicle theft, slightly down. Good deal down on theft from autos. Unfortunately, we are about 25% increase in thefts from last year, but in the last 30 days, it's been even. So we hope that is a good trend. And actually, I could report the past 30 days in terms of thefts decreased by 30% over the prior 30 days on thefts. So August had 30% less thefts than July, thereabouts. Other than that, I'll leave it up to questions then.
I know we'll have several. If I could just ask the first one on the commercial burglaries, particularly the ones you noted in Cleveland Park. My understanding is those were at the Park and Shop in vicinity. There is a camera at that location with the MPD logo on it. Has the camera been useful in identifying suspects, and was it in service? And if not, is it back in service?
It was useful in for the suspects, from my understanding, and they have some good leads on it. So that camera was useful. We don't always find, however, that businesses have alarms. So unfortunately, these cameras aren't actively monitored by us. And if there is a glass breakage and the business does not have a glass breakage sensor, then we are relying on a passerby or MPD officer driving by to report the breaking. So we've been very much encouraging businesses to not just have cameras, but to also have the alarms that connect to 911.
Okay, pardon me, but Captain Haskis, is that an MPD camera? Because I asked Cassandra Hetherington, who's the head of Main Street, the Main Street down there, and she did some research and came back and said that it was possibly the management company's camera. Is it MPD's camera or is it the management company's? And also there was a rumor unsubstantiated that it wasn't working, that it wasn't connected when these robberies happened. And so I was just wondering.
Yeah, let me check on who exactly has it. But from my understanding, there was camera footage, but I'll double check and let you know. on it.
Thank you. But the big tall camera with the flashing light, is that MPD?
It literally says MPD on it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it
But,
was my
But Commander Savoy said it was not at the CAC meeting, so that's why I was asking.
I'll double check who has the primary responsibility for it. But I'll double check on that.
Thank you.
Now I'll let you know via an email.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Yes, so are these arrests being prosecuted?
So, we've been finding in general that the arrests generally have been. The arrest I was involved with yesterday, I'm guessing you're asking about theft and otherwise.
Well, you said that you've had some successes lately. I was just wondering how.
Yeah, they have been, some of these thefts have been, most thefts, from what I've seen, have been getting prosecuted. I got an email today for the theft arrest last week. And it's being prosecuted.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks. So I'm hoping going in the right order, Commissioner Pagets and then Robert.
Yeah, I guess I was having the same. First of all, it's the MPD's camera. It clearly says it. I think we've established that months ago. In that park and shop. My question is, if they have the alarms, like, does that camera also detect like noise? Would it hear and then do something, or no? Okay.
really just
The other gunshot stuff that we have in the city.
are different sensors, and
Okay.
they tend to be on top of buildings, and they work by triangulating the sounds. So it's not doing sounds, but it
Okay.
is the visual.
Okay, cool. And yeah, I had also heard the unsubstantiated rumor that was being spread around that the camera just wasn't working, and I had emailed you guys about it.
I've heard, I will double check on it. I don't want to say something, because if other people in my here at the second district are saying something, I will get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I mean the lights have been blinking on it, so as a not like if I'm a criminal, I would assume that the camera's working because the lights are blinking on it, right? So that would deter me from thievery, but I don't know. So I assume it was working and they were taking the risk because they didn't have like a license plate or whatever.
Indeed. Yeah, there
And-
were no license plates on those most recent burglaries.
Yeah. And also it seemed to be establishments that were likely to have cash in a cash register. Is another thing that was my understanding, because the city paused, the vet shop wasn't hit because people don't pay their vet bills in cash, and knowing
Exactly.
how much they cost, like, yeah, it would be hard to do that. So the other thing that when asked about what businesses can do to deter theft is to like make sure that they don't have like cash that's not in a safe. Like it just seemed like an easy target.
Yeah, obviously cash is what they want. They're not there to get the credit card receipts. They're there for the cash. And if they know a business keeps cash there, even a small amount of cash, it attracts, there's several dry cleaners in the second district who only keep about $100 in cash for for people paying cash so they could do change and stuff like that. But if that's known, they end up getting hit. And so we recommend no cash overnight, because that's bars. They like to go to bars, places with safes, coffee shops, stuff like that. The ones they know who will have at least some cash on hand. And the big thing lately, I will say that the MPD has moved to do that I think will pay dividends is all alarm calls, we go lights and sirens to in terms of burglar alarm calls. So We like it if these businesses start connecting to a burglar alarm rather than just cameras after the fact, and then spend days, weeks, or months with the follow-up investigation.
Okay, great. That's good to know. And I also forget where I heard this, but heard that the MPD camera program for businesses, you all are able to tie that into your new center that's doing like the live videoing things.
Exactly.
But only businesses, and it's not the residential. The residential program still exists though, but it's after the fact, and you still want people to do that residential rebate program. But for the businesses, you can have the option to live stream it to MPD in real time, correct?
Exactly. So we do have several businesses in the city that are able to hook up. Sometimes the hookups can be, I'm not really too savvy with knowing what exact programs they're using. But there's a few things they have to sync up, and we're trying to get a lot of businesses on board with that.
Okay, great.
I-
Thank you.
We do love the cameras, whether synced up or not.
Cool.
I think that's our next question from the household of Robert Mines, who is Woodley Park Business Association. Robert?
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. And yeah, I am very happy to follow up on what Janelle was just talking about, because I've been talking to a number of businesses in the neighborhood, and there is a lot of interest in getting the outward-facing cameras directly connected to the MPD. Adam and I were talking just before this call about some reports that we have from at least one business that gets robbed on a weekly basis. Generally, two gentlemen, one person waiting by the door, and the other goes inside and does a snatch and grab. I don't know whether this is being reported to MPD or not, but it's the only business that I'm aware of, similarly to CVS, that gets hit on a weekly basis effectively. And I just wanted to put that out there. I've invited them to be on this call tonight. I don't know if they're here, and I'm happy to discuss this further offline.
Sure.
But just to put that out there, that there are continuing robberies or thefts, at least in Woodley
Yes.
Park.
I would say they're probably thefts. When they take merchandise from the store and leave, not from a physical person, they're classified as thefts. So.
Right. Yeah.
But please, if they're not getting reported, or they, please let me know. I'm gonna drop my email in the chat here.
Thank you. Yeah, and so just for the group in general, I've also raised this with Adam. Two businesses have asked for improved lighting in Woodley Park, for especially in the evening hours, both to encourage people to make use of the commercial district, and to encourage certain other people not to make use of the commercial district. Apparently our Sunday markets have been having a positive effect on thefts on Sundays by the CVS. So simply just having a presence there makes a difference. And I know the two cruisers that have been there have made a huge difference as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Courtney Tolbert.
Hi, thank you. This is just a question because it never occurred to me, but the businesses that are no cash, is this a method or a preventative theft decision not to accept cash? Because I worked in the elderly community for a long time, and what I see on that end is people losing their credit, and it's just really hard for people with slight cognitive decline to handle the modernities of 21st century electronic transactions. They lose credit cards, they get scammed. So I always thought of no cash, as actually alienating some people in that population. But it's, from what I'm hearing tonight, it just sounds like it's a way to keep people from robbing you, from burglarizing your store.
I think you've got a two things can be true situation here.
So,
Yeah.
there is a law in the District of Columbia, I believe, that is still in effect, that requires a business to take cash and credit.
Correct.
Right.
are.
I believe what the captain is saying, sorry, my dog is that they're asking businesses not to leave physical cash in the store overnight.
That's correct. It's been to my surprise, though, that
Yeah.
I have been told point blank that cash is not accepted at different places, and I thought that was not.
That's
The-
against the law.
But
Oh, good
it's
to
a-
know.
It's against the law, but it might be something that I was talking to Rick Nash about this earlier in the week because there are several businesses in Cleveland Park, and it's not just elderly people. There are a lot of unbanked people who live in this neighborhood now,
Exactly.
as well as young people, foreign tourists, and there are several food establishments for takeaway food on the Cleveland Park Strip that do not take cash at all. And
That's right.
it's very difficult because there are many, many people then who cannot go in and just order what they're selling. And so,
Exactly. Exactly.
and I actually talked to one of the managers about it, and he said, I'd rather pay the fines. I don't care. And so, I mean, I do think, well, I think the
Yeah.
ANC might take it up with everybody. I'm not going to call them out right here, but it's not right and it is against the law.
Well, and you know, clearly there's a businesses should follow the law, and there's also, you know, some tension with not having large amounts of cash on hand. What I heard earlier is, you know, not just not leaving cash overnight, but businesses should manage the cash on hand,
Yeah.
not keeping more than they anticipate for their needs. I think it's probably legal not to take bills over a certain denomination so as not to have to make excessive amounts of change. So there are ways that businesses can comply with it and be accessible generally to everybody, but at the same time protect themselves.
Might the ANC take that up, please?
What are we taking up though? Because we don't do enforcement and the
I know, but
council does legislation. So, and the captain over here is also in charge of enforcement. So I don't
Right.
know what the
I
ANC's.
don't know. I think that you guys are often the moral voice of Cleveland Park in a very positive way. And, you know, you do issue letters, you issue statements, you tend to stand up for what's right. So I would hope that this would be an issue that the ANC would consider standing up for, because it's not right that people cannot get a croissant or get an egg sandwich because no cash. And for all the people who panhandle and get cash, they, you know, they can't spend it there necessarily. Not right.
Yeah, and I thought I saw Robert's hand up, but it seems to me there's, you know, also a very useful role for our business associations to, you know, first remind their members, local businesses, of the obligation to take cash, but also to provide suggestions and tips on how to manage their cash on hand in a way that reduces their risk.
I'm happy to speak to that, Commissioner Nash. I mean, in my other life, I'm a development economist working with the unbanked, so I'm very familiar with this issue and with the importance of businesses accepting cash. I don't know if after the pandemic it's quite as significant as it used to be, but the requirement is there. I'm only aware of one business that advertises in Woodley Park that they don't accept cash. I think it is a legal it's a legal imperative, and it's also a moral issue. So I can only give my support to that. I'm speaking on my own behalf more than with the Main Street's hat. But I'll certainly talk to people about it and see what's going on. As far as I know, there's only one business that doesn't accept cash in Woodley Park at this point.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sorry, happy to email the agency in charge of enforcing this so that they can send in inspectors. I don't know if the captain knows which group this is, if it's the business licensing group.
I believe it's APCA. If
Oh,
anybody, I believe so. Or no, it might be DCLPA. They keep
okay.
changing.
That's
I'm
kind of what I
assuming
DC
P
license.
for non-alcoholic establishments.
Yeah.
okay. So Elizabeth, if you want to send us the names of the businesses, we can, and Robert, same, we can ping them to enforce it.
Thank you very much, Janelle.
So if there are no more questions on the MPD report and general enforcement activity, first, Captain Haskis, I was wondering if you would introduce the lieutenant and maybe Lieutenant, if you would like to speak for a couple minutes just to tell us about yourself. We would like to welcome you. And then I do want to get to the next matter before MPD has to leave. Elizabeth, I don't know whether you want to tee that up. I know we're joined also by Mr. File from Addis Israel to speak about the recent incidents in which worshipers were accosted in the vicinity of Addis. So first, Captain Haskis.
Yes, I'm very happy to introduce Lieutenant Alexis Sakolich. She is taking over the PSA, the Police Service Area 203, which is basically Cleveland Park north of Macomb Street, which probably most of Cleveland Park. Paul Johnson is still Woodley Park, and Lieutenant Sakolich will also have Forest Hills and the Van Ness area. So a big corridor of Connecticut Avenue from basically Nebraska down to Macomb. She comes very highly regarded from the 7th District, and we're very happy to have her. And she's going to be, I think, you all will be very, very pleased. So I'll introduce her and let her speak briefly.
Thank you, and welcome, Lieutenant Sakolich.
Hi. So just a little bit about me, I guess an introduction. I've been on the department since 2005. I worked in the 1st District, 5th District, Criminal Investigations Division, Sergeant in 70, and now here I am here. I've been here since July, trying to kind of ease into 203 and, you know, kind of get the hang of everything up here. So any questions for me?
Still a potential.
No, well, thank you. And, again, we really appreciate your participation and that of the captains in these meetings. And thank you all for what you do for the community and for also keeping the community informed.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, while MPD is still here, I know that there are several community members who would like to speak to the recent incidents.
Yeah, I would very much like to hear about them. I find them very distressing.
Mr. File or Elizabeth?
Sure, I can jump in. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Well, firstly, let me just say I'm happy to join you tonight. I am new to Addis Israel. I'm the new executive director, started about a week ago. And I'm looking forward to becoming involved with you on a regular basis. So I just want to say that first and foremost. I was made aware over the weekend of harassment that was going on the corner at I guess it was on, I think it was on Friday night, but it may have been on Saturday. And my understanding is the people who faced it implied that there wasn't a physical threat to them, but more of a harassment situation. The fact that this happened in the same week after we had the vigil there, and a week after the horrible tragedy of the 6 hostages being killed, it doesn't feel coincidental to me. So we very much appreciate the entire neighborhood being aware of this and doing whatever they can to stay vigilant, if you will. And I'm happy to offer any other comments, but I really am more interested in hearing what everybody else has seen and their thoughts on it.
Do you know, Mr. File, whether any reports were filed with the police? I did notice some postings on the Cleveland Park listserv.
I don't know if they were filed that way or not. One of our team members, Marcy Spiro, is the one who received information about this from, I believe, two different individuals, if not more, uh, who had come into the synagogue who had felt this situation. It happened once. I imagine it'll happen again, and it's really a question of, just in general, what kind of monitoring is going on when individuals who are either coming from Metro or walking from their homes on Shabbat. What what kind of awareness there is, whether it be through the local police or other members of the community.
Well, if I could interject. Yeah, MPD, if anybody's being harassed or especially harassed or threatened, we would like to know about it. My email's on the little chat thread. We would like to know more about it, and so we could do our patrols accordingly. And also if there's anything we could do on the past ones, if they are crimes, we could look into that as well. But yeah, we definitely want to know more about it.
Yep. I wish I had more I could offer on it this evening. I will be on site tomorrow night and on Saturday, so I'll personally be monitoring it at both times, coming out periodically to take a look and see what's going on.
This is Tammy Gordon. I'm ANC rep for your area. So also just will find your contact information so that you have my cell and email if you need anything.
That's great. And I think I can jump into the chat if I can do this right from my car. I am not driving, by the way, but I'll go ahead and throw my information in there as well.
Okay.
The MPD will be in contact with you.
That would be great.
Okay, well, thank you. And we appreciate MPD's focus on this. Are there any more questions or points either on this recent series of incidents or on any other topic that MPD has covered?
Rick, this is Courtney. I just was recalling being in CVS last week in Cleveland Park and witnessing an incident where people came into the store a second time, I was told by the clerk, to take things off the shelves. And it's so disheartening now to see so many things that are either locked up or behind or not even in existence, and they're reducing their inventory substantially. And I understand that this is not just in our area, but citywide and maybe area wide. But what is the thought of the employee ratio to the increase in theft? Is it because the stores are so empty of employees that these events are happening more, or what exactly is going on? I know, and it sounds like I'm asking a big question, but that store in particular just seems to be very vulnerable to opportunistic theft and burglary. And it doesn't seem like they can do anything about it. They are instructed not to intervene.
Perhaps MPD is insight into how retailers are dealing with theft and whether, they instruct their employees not to intervene. Beyond that, it would just be speculation, certainly on my part, whether the stores are understaffed. I imagine that they are, and of course, a lack of eyes in the front of the store could contribute to that. I would just observe that at the CVS on Wisconsin Avenue that I frequent, more than Connecticut, they seem to have increased their staffing level, or at least the presence of staff toward the entrance. And I know NPD has responded to at least one recent incident there. So there seems to be a bit more focus from the retail chain. at that location. And it's too bad that there isn't the same focus elsewhere.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick.
Okay, well, do I see any more hands up? I think
Robert has a few.
Robert, sorry. And then
No worries. I mean, to get to Courtney's point, I think it's a combination of things. So I've literally seen people come to rob the CVS who walked right by Wooby and walk into the store and grab something and then run away. So I've heard stories from him of somebody going in with a bag of half stolen from the previous CVS, going in there grabbing things and literally walking out the door and immediately being grabbed by a police officer whose cruiser was next to the door the whole time. So you know, it's people have become more brazen. They're aware of corporate policies regarding minimum theft necessary to trigger a report to the police. And for us as Main Street, I think it's difficult to, on the one hand, convince people to report as often as possible so that we get accuracy in terms of what's going on in the neighborhood. And the businesses wish not to do that also for insurance reasons, because if they report a great deal, there's a risk that their insurance rates go up. The issue is, in the end, if these thefts continue at this rate, we start losing essential businesses to the neighborhoods, and that's sort of the difficult balance. I talked to an officer at the Woodley Park Community Association picnic on Saturday, and we discussed this at length. Those resources are going to certain businesses and not other businesses, and that's because of the nature of the beast at the moment. There's a much greater demand than there are resources to be able to spread everywhere. But I think the problem has just become much more brazen. If you read the stories about what happened this weekend with groups of 60 people breaking into a business, there is no staff capacity that you can do that you can have to stop that. And also, you don't want to do that. You don't want to put staff in a position where they're taking over a law enforcement role, or they are endangering themselves by getting involved with somebody who might be carrying a weapon of some kind. So it's a difficult balance to strike.
well, I think we're all distressed by the brazenness, and certainly it's complicated where groups of individuals will go in and steal at the same time. But I did want to note, you mentioned that businesses may not report or follow through on thefts that they view as too small to warrant police attention or certainly prosecution. But recently, and maybe the captain can speak to this, there have been some arrests made where I think with the cooperation of the retailer, it may have been CVS, they've been able to aggregate or accumulate various thefts that have been made by one individual, and by doing so have then been able to bring charges against that individual, even if for isolated thefts that would have been more challenging.
That's good to hear. It puts you in an awkward position as a customer. And plus, I walk and I question if somebody might be resentful of me having witnessed it and then leaving the store. I feel a little vulnerable there too. So anyway, but it's good to know, and I'm better understanding all of the dynamics that are involved in this downward trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I just have a question perhaps for Captain Haskis. Out of curiosity, have you seen better configurations of stores or better technology that starts to be preventive? I've seen some of the gates and some of the supermarkets in Columbia Heights that I don't think stop things, but may slow them down. But, if corporate theft prevention got more involved, are there better ways to configure their stores to make this harder so they're not imperiling your employees, but somehow preventing people from just loading up and walking out? I mean, is this, partially not a neighborhood problem, but a corporate problem that?
I mean, of course, there could be more security measures inside stores, and I think those have been slowly rolling out. We've seen what happened with the Safeway on Wisconsin Avenue. you've seen in other stores as well on how they have configured doorways and stuff like that. And we'll probably see changes over the course of the next decade in regards to that. But what I've also found is if somebody really wants to take something, they will get it. I mean, the best examples we have are probably jewelry stores where they have $30,000 watches behind plate glass windows, and they come in with a big sledgehammer and get, even inside the fashion center over in Arlington, the mall over there, they will get what, if they want something, they will get it. They have to climb over the barrier, they will climb over the barrier. So there is more they could do, but I think those methods have a ceiling on how much that they can deter. In terms of CVS and the other, most of the retailers are very good with us on the after the theft with video footage and alike. It's usually we don't get the call till after the thief has left the premises, which really limits our ability to catch the thief. Most of the thefts I think I've caught, for example, at the Wisconsin and Newark, CVS are because bus was running late to hop on for the escape. Those are, you know, if they are slowed down somehow, we catch up to them. Metro running slow, we catch up to them. Bus running slow, we catch up to them. And of course, there are many thefts that occur from people who walk less than a block or only a few blocks away. So by the time we get in the area, it's, you know, even with getting there within 5 minutes, won't catch the thief, which is why I wish some of these corporate policies allowed their employees to, I mean, if somebody walks in a store with a large garbage bag unfurled, we all know what that person plans on doing. Why not just call 911 immediately, and it'll increase the odds of the police catching the suspect quite a bit. So yeah, there are a lot of frustrating things. There are a lot of things that can be done. Unfortunately, MPD cannot. I try to put our staff in front of a lot of these retail establishments as often as I can, but obviously we can't do it all the time. So how it pans out in the coming years with retail in our area, it will be interesting. We'll see a lot more things locked up. I hope we don't have any more store closures.
And Captain, if I might interject, I want to thank you for that, because I think that is one of the most successful things. Unfortunately, with the brazenness, you know, the stories are literally that the people will wait for the cruiser to leave, and then, you know, within 30 seconds of the cruiser leaving, that's when they strike. And I don't think that there is a defense against that. As you said, if someone's intent on stealing, then they will. Yeah, but it's very much appreciated when those cruisers are available, and you know, that helps keep businesses in the neighborhood that are important to all of us.
Yes, it is. Commissioner Pagans.
Yeah. But also the cruisers down in Woodley Park keeps parking on the sidewalk by that CVS too. That's a no-no. Keep seeing that on the bus, but that's not what I wanted to bring up.
I will advise the sergeants to follow up on that.
Thank you. And because I'm on the bus that's wrapped, I can't take a good photo of it. You'll just be looking like through a bug-eyed lens at, I don't know. Anyways, I had a question about the camera program again, because I'm obsessed with it. I think it's fantastic. It wouldn't hook up live inside the store. Like, it's only you guys can only look outside the store live with the businesses, right? Oh, you're on mute.
All right. Outside is, I only know it to be capable outside.
Okay.
Sure.
My other question was, like, I feel like if I were a retail employee, first of all, I'm probably not getting paid enough to like risk my life calling 911 while like the crime is happening in the store. They can text 911, right? to report these thefts happening, so they're not having to like be heard by the people and potentially have that, um, you know,
Calling 911 remains to be the quickest way to get police. These text threads, they're monitored all the time, but from my understanding, they don't go right to a dispatcher like a phone call does.
okay.
I think,
That
a
could be,
step between.
yeah, but that could be like a potential like solution in the future to like encouraging people to report it when it's happening instead of after the fact, so that it's more of a deterrent because you're catching more people because the officers are responding faster to where folks are coming from also while they're trying to flee, right?
Sure, if I could graph response time, call time to apprehensions, it'll probably be a nice linear graph.
Okay.
Just to put this out there, the staff at Sherry's, they now have one of their staff members standing at the door welcoming people after, I believe it's 8 o'clock in a jersey that says security.
Oh.
Just their normal staff, but as a way of deterring people from coming in. And you know, and then I from what I've heard, it's a successful deterrent. And I've seen people go in even during the market, literally, you know, a gentleman hides things just outside the CVS and then stands in the door peeking in, and you know, just having us there, being vigilant and talking to the staff in there also helps.
Thank you. And Courtney, and then after that, I know we have to move on to another agenda topic. So please go ahead.
Sure, I just had a thought, and the recent school shooting had the employees press a badge, a mechanism on the badge to alert the police. Is that technology at all familiar or available to us in this area? Because that way you're not caught making a call and you're not texting, but it went straight to the police, and that's why they were so able to respond to the school so quickly. I know it's not a school shooting situation, but I just curious about that technology.
I have heard of that technology. The District of Columbia is different from, I think, that locale, in that calls don't go directly to the police here. We have a government agency called the Office of Unified Communications. I'm not sure if they have that capability, but I could check on it and give you an email with my contacts over at OUC.
Well, thanks very much. And thank you, Captain and Lieutenant, for giving up part of your evening to join us. And I know the next item, which Commissioner Prinzo will lead on, you've actually provided the perfect setup to it, because it's to discussion of the follow-up on the Office of Unified Communications and some of the issues the community's been experiencing, not just on the police side, but more acutely on the emergency response side. So, Adam?
Thank you, Rick. So to build off of this lovely conversation on OUC, I'm going to put in the chat a tweet from Councilmember Brooke Pinto. As you may or may not be aware, there was an incident that occurred actually within our ANC bounds over the summer that has gotten some widespread reporting in the local media on another failure at OUC to properly answer and/or route calls. So in response to that, Councilmember Brooke Pinto's Judiciary and Public Safety Committee will be holding monthly public oversight hearings to talk about operational failures at OUC, performance and transparency mechanisms, and other technologies and other multi-agency coordinations that OUC could undertake. Her staff is also her staff, I should say, will also be undertaking unannounced visits to OUC call centers on a bi-weekly basis. And she's introducing a bill that will require the public release of an after-action report in the event of emergencies that probably could have been handled better by OUC. So my main question to the members of this committee The ANC has undertaken a letter or a resolution in the past. I know there are, I believe now, 2 district-wide ANC sign-on letters that have been sent to the council. Does this committee want to file something more formally with the Judiciary Committee? Again, stating that we believe that the city is failing us when it comes to emergency response. I think the metrics are out there. They're pretty bad. I think the nationwide average to answer a 911 call is 15 seconds. And I think the district is currently at 30 seconds, which is kind of surprising because the amount of times I've called 911 and been put on hold is more than I would care to admit. So I just want to get everybody's thoughts on that. And also to Janelle's point, they have rolled out text to 911. It is an option. 9 times out of 10, you get an answer back that says that they are busy and to please call 911. I don't know if that means that your message is not, and they won't, I don't think they will say, but I don't know if that means that your message is not sent to them, or, you know, it's just put in a holding position, or what the story is there. Elizabeth?
First of all, I fully understand and have read that what a problem 911 is in Washington. And I actually, as part of that MPD program, we got to visit there. My question is, should the committee decide to do anything? What do we really hope to accomplish, though? You know, a small committee on a small ANC, so, you know, you can do it, but where do you think that's going to move the needle? I think that many louder, larger voices are working on this, and I'm not saying that it's not worthwhile, but is it effective? Does it change anything? And what's
I
our
will-
purpose?
For me, it's just so we are on record as an ANC in which a very large scale incident happened, is on record in the council as saying that we understand there's a problem, and we've been asking you since, I believe, the district dogs flooding, which I believe has been a year now, to fix this problem. It really shouldn't take this long to fix. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't think we as ANC3C can solve the OUC problem, but if, you know, 40 ANCs around the district get together at some point and say this is a problem, I don't think they have much of a choice than to actually start listening. But Janelle?
Yeah, and I was the leader, one of the leaders on the second sign-on letter. We had like 130 some ANCs sign on to district-wide, and the first one in September of last year it resulted in action because it got a ton of press coverage. It did. The mayor didn't act, and that's who that went to. The second letter went to the council to ask them to perform oversight. The thing with Pinto's proposal here is it's pretty weak oversight, and she's not bringing up bills that Councilmember White or Councilmember Nadeau have proposed regarding better oversight. And her current Councilmember Pinto's current idea is still like having OUC or having them basically perform oversight of themselves, and they're not doing it. It's already required by law that they do this reporting to council, and they're not. So it needs to be a different agency that's monitoring this and reporting out on it, and not relying on them self-reporting, because it's never going to work that way. So this is obviously something that greatly affects all of us, all of our residents, all of the people who come and visit the District of Columbia. And I find it ridiculous that we don't have a more robust investment in the text to 911 system when we have such a large population of deaf community in in the area, who struggle to call 911, right? So it's just really frustrating. The infant who died because of the error in the dispatch system and the system going down for several hours was in my S&D, my neighbor. And then I also heard from another resident who had an infant in a similar situation and like barely got the child to the hospital on time within 2 weeks of the first one. So I think that there is the opportunity for our ANC to lead again on this, and with the folks that I've reached out to sign onto these letters, I know that their ANCs would also pass similar resolutions, because that's what we've been doing since last September. And yeah, it's a slow drumbeat, but we need to keep on it.
And I just do want to piggyback on what Janelle is saying. I think the letter could be drafted in this committee, but obviously the full ANC would vote on it, which would then trigger like council having to give it great weight, understand what it says, read it. Somebody has to give us a response at some point. Technically, it's 90 days, more like 90 years, but be that as it may.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree, and I think, you know, first of all, Commissioner Pagets has articulated one, you know, important reason why we have a voice, and that's because one of the tragic consequences occurred, you know, right here in her own district. And where we can sort of bring additional emphasis to a couple of the points she made, whether it's on proper and you know, robust and impartial oversight, or on additional technology, including non-voice means to report things, because it's not just a large hearing impaired population, but you know, because we are the nation's capital. I mean, one could easily envision, you know, a horrible situation where phone lines get overwhelmed in a crisis, and you know, text will, you know, often get through where voice connections can't be made as easily. So there's a whole host of reasons, but again, where because of what this ANC has experienced, and where clearly some commissioners have given some particular thought to certain issues where the council really needs to focus, I would encourage us to send a letter.
Robert, I think you had your hand raised and then it went away, and
That was me fighting with technology.
okay. So I'm happy to draft something. Maybe I can piggyback a little bit on Janelle's sign-on letter, and then we can share it and maybe vote on it in October. I'm seeing a head nod.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I mean, when is her hearing on this again?
She hasn't. It's starting in October, November, December, I believe.
But there's no initial date yet.
Let me look.
I don't see one.
No, we'll also hold monthly public oversight hearings of OUC starting this fall. The hearings will focus on hearing 1, recent operational failures and accidents, hearing 2, performance and transparency methods and mechanisms, and hearing 3, technology and other multi-agency coordination.
Okay.
I'm just gonna check the council's website. Yeah. The Judiciary and Public Safety Committee hasn't scheduled any hearings post recess yet. At least if I'm reading this correctly. Yeah. So October, I mean, I could draft something by Monday. I just don't know
No,
if, yeah,
because you have to renotice it, and it's
yeah, yeah.
we have
So
a ton of
that's
stuff.
why I'm saying October.
Yeah.
Does that timeline work for other committee members?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as soon as we can get it done. It's not like it's gonna get solved before that.
Right.
Let's just do it.
Well, that's all I had on that.
Thanks
So-
for surfacing it.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other agenda items or topics that committee members want to raise?
I just wanted to point out that in the automatic traffic enforcement world, which should be public safety as well, traffic, the speeding camera over on Newark and Connecticut Avenue, I happened to notice that it was not really up in the rankings where I thought it should be, you know, walking the street every day and seeing the speeding cars. So they have like a little map and you can click on like the camera and see its statistics. And the speed limit on Connecticut Avenue is 25 miles an hour. That camera was set at 30 miles an hour. I emailed DDOT within 2 hours. They reset that little speed camera. And that happened in July. In the prior month, there were only like 468 tickets issued when it was 30 miles an hour. There were 3,200 tickets issued the following month. So, and people argue with me that people can't pick up speed at that intersect or that area of road. Well, there are 3,200 people who managed to do it in 1 month. Now, it has since gone down to only 2,300 people last month, which tells me that these are like repeat offenders that have now learned that that camera is picking them up and they slow down now, which is great. But my goodness, like that is in front of a library, people. Like, slow down.
Yeah,
it's
of course. And, you know, that diminution may just have been because it's August when, you know, traffic seems to be a little bit less in the city and the metropolitan area. So that's great. And, you know, one question I would have is setting it at 30 miles an hour. Is that really triggered at 30 or is it 30 plus some margin? Because I understand they always have a bit of a margin to account for, you know, variations in speed and maybe
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not.
equipment tolerance.
I'm pretty sure it's not like if you're going 26 miles an hour, it's clocking you. It's probably 5 miles an hour.
Like in New York, it was 11 miles over the posted speed limit.
I don't think it's that many.
I think is a little drastic.
These speed camera or the automatic enforcement things, I think it's a little bit of a tighter margin. But if people were traveling at 46 miles an hour when it was like, this is just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a super speedway. And in front of a library is just appalling. So in a commercial zone. So I'm glad that that's fixed, and I'm hoping some of those drivers that are getting those tickets are learning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. I was speaking with Commissioner Prinzo earlier, and you know, clearly there is more that DC, including NPD, you know, ought to be able to do for enforcement, particularly for the most egregious reckless driving situation. my understanding from speaking with a couple of NPD members is their own guidelines effectively would preclude them from, any kind of a pursuit stop, even in the most reckless driving. Someone could be going 80 or 90 miles an hour in a school zone, and there's restrictions on their ability to pursue. So, I understand that pursuit also can entail risks, but the point is, more needs to be done to address speeding, and particularly, reckless driving, excessive speed, and other conduct.
Well, that's a misnomer that the police union seems to keep leaning on, is that they can't pursue like high speed chases throughout. They can always pull over dangerous drivers and give them in-person ticket.
But
it's
if
just
the vehicle
not-
keeps going, anyway, I think it's worth looking at some more, but just anecdotally, and I think the data shows that there's just increasing reckless driving, and obviously more vehicle incidents that put pedestrians and other operators at risk.
Well, and Elizabeth brought up earlier about are you prosecuting these crimes or not? Well, we came to find out today that the pedestrian that was hit over in 3E in a crosswalk was killed. The driver is not going to be prosecuted for a crime because the U.S. District Attorney is just not, and they haven't given a reason why yet. And that's really unfortunate that drivers, it wasn't the car that crashed into the person, it was a driver, killed one of our neighbors, and apparently it's fine. And that is something that I know we have the Safe Sustainable Transportation Committee, and that seems to be more focused on infrastructure. I think maybe this committee can take more of a position on
Enforcement and prosecution. Yeah.
Thank you. Side of traffic violence.
Yeah.
Including some kind of mechanism, even if you've gotten 15 speeding tickets, if you're not forced to pay them, if there's not real penalty, there are a lot of people who have legions of tickets for all kinds of infractions, and they're not enforced.
There was
in
a woman that
district
went on,
places and certainly out of district.
Courtney, I'm going to just give one thing and then I'll turn it to you. But there was a woman on TikTok who lives in Maryland, has a Maryland plated car, or maybe it was Twitter. She racked up, I think it was almost $10,000 worth of tickets that she owed to the District of Columbia for speeding, and like seriously speeding at night, like 70 or 80 miles an hour on New York Avenue. And she was bragging that she never had to pay them because she lives in Maryland and there's no, I guess, what's the word?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. So it's
This is over and over, hundreds of them. It's all.
Oh yeah. I mean,
crazy.
I was walking downtown the other day and the light changed, so I crossed because I had the light, and this woman started honking at me in the crosswalk because I was in the crosswalk when I had the light. So, it's just the amount of aggressive drivers. I don't know if it's like COVID related because people forgot how to like interact with other people during these lockdowns, but like they're out of control. But Courtney, you had your hand raised.
Don't you
Yeah.
think it's a little bit lack of consequence? I mean, I think it's up to the mayor's office to negotiate reciprocity agreements with these places, because there are so many people who commute to work from out of state, out of the district. And if there is no accountability or no reason to either drive better or pay your tickets, where's the incentive?
Well, didn't
Yeah.
sorry, Courtney, go ahead and then I'll pick.
No, but it's true. I mean, I concur. I just want to say, just yesterday evening, walking back from crossing at the crosswalk at Devonshire and Connecticut, the light changed. The traffic was heavy. There were people before the crosswalk, in the middle of the crosswalk, and right after the crosswalk. So a gentleman and I weaved around the front, and as we were going around, somebody was parked in the middle of a crosswalk. Somebody gunned the gas in an SUV to get through it, and she completely just missed us. To which I didn't bang on her head, but I gently tapped and she mouthed, "I'm sorry." And it was like, "But why did you even go? Because you knew the traffic wasn't going. This is a crosswalk." I thought the fine was pretty high for stopping in a crosswalk, and yet there's no mechanism for enforcement, and there was no consequences for what she did. Thank goodness we were not hit. Um, it would have been so easy. I'm not saying I would have been killed, but I definitely would have been injured. I am not the tallest person in the world. And
You're
she,
not.
yes, I am not. And the gentleman I was walking with is taller. And I'm thinking maybe because he was so much taller, she was able to react to him more than to me. But this was just yesterday. And I was thinking, wow, there's no incentives for every 5 inches that somebody gains running the light. I mean, that's what it was. She hurried up and she had to stop. And I just thought that was so dangerous. They know what they are. They know the crosswalks. So
They do the same thing happens to me on like a monthly basis in the zoo crosswalk. In the
yes.
Connecticut crosswalk.
Yes.
So I've been lobbying to get red light running cameras on both sides of that zoo crosswalk thing because people keep blocking that box and blocking
Yeah.
that crosswalk, and then they try to get out of it. And as the pedestrians are crossing from like all of
Yes.
the angles of that large thing, so I want the red light running cameras because that would also get the people who are making U-turns illegally in the crosswalk
Yep.
while people are crossing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think in the last 3 months of this ANC term, we should really flag with DDOT because uh the pilot program for the ATE, the red light and the speed enforcement cameras,
Mhm.
it's currently going to be evaluated. It started in March of this year to March of next year, and then they're going to reassess and start reallocating where these cameras are and like which ones are ranked highest. By the way, the one on Newark Street is ranked 20th out of like 400 in the District of Columbia for picking things up. So I knew it was underperforming when it was ranked like in the 200s, which made me look at that speed. But I think, advocating for some of this stuff, especially when we do have a heavy population of tourists, children, um, uh, and everybody that's going to the zoo, like the Maryland drivers can't keep zipping down Connecticut like unimpugned by
Yep.
anything.
Yeah, well, it's not just Maryland drivers. I mean, the other
Well,
is much as we
it's
it's just
mostly
drivers, but the other is, much as we like the bus,
Virginia.
and I
So-
sympathize with drivers who want to keep to schedules and not be blocked. I've seen a number of Metro buses recently going at speed through red lights, and unfortunately, on the back of Metro buses, there isn't the notice that you often see on other common carriers, how's my driving, or for
Yeah.
instance, report at this number. There just isn't a number to call. And if you do call Metro and try to reach Metro Police, they get shunted to the customer complaint line. Well, barreling through a intersection with pedestrians in the crosswalk is not a mere customer complaint. So, if we bring forward a resolution to identify like the zoo crossing and maybe some others, there might be some other things we can do to bring, more attention on those who would run red lights, particularly at major crossings.
Rick, you bring up an excellent point, and I think we can all remember when the Metro bus down near Constitution Avenue and 11th Street killed the women in the crosswalk when they ran the light. So I'll never forget that. It was caught on camera some years ago, but it is very dangerous because they are very large and they cannot see. Uh, they couldn't see somebody like me if they were running a light. There is a lot of pressure on them to keep
Yeah.
to a schedule, but at the same time, it only takes one incident to become a huge tragedy. So I'd like to not see that happen.
Okay, are there any other items of business or other comments before we adjourn?
No, and thank you all very much.
No. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
evening. Okay, bye-bye.
You know.
Bye.